what's up? This is Ron.
Yo, this is Micah, and this is In the Middle. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are back again. Episode 3. This is, of course, In the Middle with Micah and
Ron.
Oh man, Ron just hit me up with something fantastic. He gave me a masterpiece to think about. To BLM or not to BLM? That is the question.
That is the question, my friend. It's a real deep question when you get to thinking about it. I mean, it's wanting a champion for your own and want to see, the killings of black folks stopping at the hands of police. And on the other hand, it's not wanting to necessarily prop up this organization that isn't really for the culture, right? Like, it involves the culture, but it in its entirety isn't about the entire culture. And when I say that, I mean, the family structure, like the actual male, female family structure, okay, that procreates, puts more into the world, if you want to put it that way. Now, this isn't a shot at folks who opt for the latter, okay, but when we're talking about the actual essence of BLM and Black Lives Matter and what they're for, that's what we're discussing. Because it's we two young black men, we've said this before. If you've listened to the podcast, we got families, we got wives, we got kids. Mm-hmm. But until something unfortunate happens to us that can kind of advance the narrative for the other side that doesn't really put themselves out there for us as black men with these families, okay, that's when the whole Black Lives Matter kind of comes out, and now we're marching. Now it's and God bless the people that come out, and I feel like they come out genuinely for the incident, right? Yes. They come out genuinely for the loss of life that they didn't want to have happen or see happen, and I do appreciate that. What I don't appreciate is just the kind of hijacking and usage of said tragedy just to further a political agenda or a sexual identity agenda that isn't really for me. I basically
make sure you clear that up, because some people think that when you say that you don't support that particular agenda, that you are denying them a space to be supported, period, or that you're automatically discriminating against them. And I don't think that's what you mean. But folks will quick to be able to try to put that in your mouth, saying, "Well, you're not for what I believe. That means you're anti me." It's like, no, maybe right now when we talk about. It's very interesting, and we talked about this before we even came up with this particular subject, just in casual conversation. I have found, and you have found, that there are now two kinds of all lives matter folks, and the two kinds of all lives matter people are, one, the well-meaning and trying to be very articulate and understanding and empathetic white people. White Americans who,
or not even just white people.
Yeah, some black
folks. I've got some close friends that feel like
they say
all lives matter, but they're coming from a place of like, hey, we're all humans.
Yeah, we're all humans. That's that all lives matter. Yes,
right.
That's that one. Then there's the black group, and when I mean the black group, I'm talking about the black group that's really Black Lives Matter, pro-black type. Mm. They say all lives. They say all Black Lives Matter. Which means that when you say Black Lives Matter, if you're not including anyone from any other sect of belief that just happens to be black, if you're not including them, that means you don't care about their black life. But last I checked, both groups, the all humans are the same group, and the you then be inclusive of every version of black person group, they all keep on missing the same thing. When we say Black Lives Matter, we say that Black Lives Matter. That's it. We're not
That's
saying
it.
white lives don't matter. We're not saying
Right.
that LGBTQ black people don't matter. We're just saying,
Right.
in totality, Black Lives Matter. We can say Black Lives Matter without having to say all Black Lives Matter. The same reason why when we say Black Lives Matter, we don't have to say, oh no, you white people, you white Americans, your lives matter too. No, we know your lives matter. We just want ours to be treated with the same equity
With the
and the
same
same
thing. Yeah.
privileges and the same
That's all.
protections under the law. So for
That's
the
all.
fact that we have to explain this to both well-meaning black and white people who love all humans and black people of the different communities, thinking that we're excluding them is I found it very, very hilarious. But you brought up
Right.
something about Black Lives Matter, and it's very important. They haven't changed what they believed
No.
in, and like I said before, I believe it was in episode one. The founders, two of the founders, one of them admitted to it openly that they are trained Marxists. Now, you
Yeah.
don't know what Marxist is. I'm not here to do the work for you to figure that out. But when you find out what Marxism actually is, don't fall for the propaganda. I feel that we should definitely, and I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to show you on their actual website what they actually believe. And I'm going to read this as articulately as I can just to make sure that you understand. And it's not a long read. Trust me, I will make it very entertaining for you to understand. Here we go. Here's what Black Lives Matter believe. What we believe. This is on blacklivesmatter.com. When you go click on the About tab, it will come up with what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
4 years ago, what is now known as the Black Lives Matter Global Network began to organize. It started out as a chapter-based, member-led organization whose mission was to build local power and to intervene when violence was inflicted on black communities by the states and vigilantes. So specifically, they are already telling you from the first paragraph, they don't care about black on black crime, which is an actual thing. I'll talk about that later as far as my personal opinion, because I know there's some people that don't like to hear that. In the years since, we've committed to struggling together and to imagining and creating a world free of anti-blackness, where every black person has the social, economic, and political power to thrive. Found that interesting. Black Lives Matter began as a call to action in response to state-sanctioned violence and anti-black racism. Our intention from the very beginning was to connect black people from all over the world who have shared desire for justice to act together in their communities. The impetus for that commitment was and still is the rampant and deliberate violence inflicted on us by the state. Again, let's focus on the state. Enraged by the death of Trayvon Martin and the subsequent acquittal of his killer, George Zimmerman, and inspired by the 31-day takeover of the Florida State Capitol by Powered You and their Dream Defenders, we took to the streets. A year later, we set out together on the Black Lives Matter Freedom Ride to Ferguson in search for justice for Mike Brown and all those who have been torn apart by state-sanctioned violence and anti-black racism. Forever changed, we returned home and began building the infrastructure for Black Lives Matter Global Network, which even in its infancy has become a political home for many. Ferguson helped to catalyze a movement to which we've all helped give life. Organizers who call this network home have ousted anti-black politicians, won critical legislation to benefit black lives, and changed the terms of the debate on blackness around the world. Through movement and relationship building, we have also helped catalyze other movement and shifted culture with the eye toward dangerous impacts of anti-blackness. These are the results of our collective efforts. The Black Lives Matter Global Network is as powerful as it is because of our membership, our partners, our supporters, our staff, and you. Our continued commitment to liberation for all black people means we are continuing the work of our ancestors and fighting for our collective freedom because it is our duty. Sorry for chuckling. There's some of this stuff that I find interesting. Every day we recommit to healing ourselves and each other and to co-creating alongside comrades, allies, and family a culture where each person feels seen, heard, and supported. We acknowledge, respect, and celebrate differences and commonalities. We work rigorously for freedom and justice for black people and, by extension, all people. We intentionally build and nurture a beloved community that is bonded together through a beautiful struggle that is restorative, not depleting. We are unapologetically black in our positioning. In affirming that Black Lives Matter, we need not qualify our position. To love and desire freedom for justice of ourselves is a prerequisite for wanting the same for others. We see ourselves as part of the global Black family, and we are aware of different ways we are impacted or privileged as Black people who exist in different parts of the world. We are guided by the fact that all Black Lives Matter, regardless of actual or perceived sexual identity, gender expression, economic status, ability, disability, religious beliefs or disbeliefs, immigration status or location. We make space for transgender brothers and sisters to participate and lead. We are self-reflective and do the work required to dismantle cisgender privilege and uplift Black trans folk, especially Black trans women, who continue to be disproportionately impacted by trans antagonistic violence. We build a space that affirms Black women and is free from sexism, misogyny, and environments in which men are centered. We practice empathy. We engage comrades with the intent to learn about and connect with their context. We make our spaces family friendly and enable parents to fully participate with their children. We dismantle the patriarchal practice that requires mothers to work double shifts so that they can mother in private even as they participate in public justice work. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family. Let me read that again. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. And we foster a queer affirming network. When we gather, we do with the intention of freeing ourselves from the tight grip of heteronormative thinking, or rather the belief that all in the world are heterosexual unless she or he or they disclose otherwise. We cultivate intergenerational and communal network free from ageism, and we believe that all people, regardless of age, show up with the capacity to lead and learn. And we embody and practice justice, liberation, and peace in our engagements with one another. And that is the end of that statement. And let me tell you, the horse crap that I have stuck in my throat, man, excuse me.
Yeah.
Because outside of Trayvon and Mike Brown, did you hear any words whatsoever about a Black father?
No.
In fact, when I was listening to myself, when I read it before and I read it again, now I'm hearing it out loud, just hear myself saying it. I'm seeing here that they're dismantling cisgender privilege. In other words, for me, when I see that, it's like, yeah, you say that and you want to uplift Black trans folks, especially Black trans women. That makes me feel, even though you say that, you want to embody and practice justice, liberation, and peace in our engagement with one another, it sounds like to me that you're very anti-Black male.
It doesn't give a lens to say, hey, we're actually here for the father. Like, we're actually here for the Black male, heterosexual male as a whole.
Yeah.
That ends up being the epicenter of the movement on its face in public.
Yes. So Every single time I have seen, and you have seen, Black Lives Matter come out in droves, it has been when a Black man has been killed by a white, preferably a white, police officer.
It's usually the narrative. Yeah.
And that's the narrative that they need to make sure that what they need to do as an organization is pushed forward. So as an organization, I am sour on them as an organization. Right. And that is something that I would tell them to their face. Every last one of the founders, everyone who supports that organization with money.
I will give it this, though. I will give it its props on managing to market itself in a way unlike any other entity, trying to build a financial base.
Yeah.
They've got an ideology that is being fueled by our current state of affairs.
Yes.
That you can't get away from.
Yes.
It's like Amazon, right? For an ideological base, right? It's huge.
Yeah.
because the words come out of people's mouths in such a way that is, I wouldn't say middle, it's probably is furthest away from what their actual base of ideology is.
Yes.
When you read into it,
but you have to actually go read it.
It comes out anyway.
Yeah.
By people on the ground. They might not even actually be associated with a BLM chapter.
Yeah.
You know, they're just out there really concerned and want to put an end to the violence that they're seeing. Just right over the top. Right. That's it. That's as far as they dig into the three words Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, how and this is what when I look at different commentators and things like that. One of them, as I told you about, I listened before, Mason Lucas talks about how conservatives and Republicans constantly think that the way they win is through logic and reason, knowing they're dealing with a group of people who fight with shaming tactics, who fight with fake science, who fight with with culture. So, you know, you come up with the tagline, Black Lives Matter, and the very first thing out of your mouth as a conservative is all lives matter, then automatically
as a rebuttal. Yeah.
It's a rebuttal. Automatically, people are already going to be on the Black Lives Matter side. It's like, because they're already in their head thinking to themselves like, but this dude just got killed by just a random police officer who was like, you saying all lives matter doesn't really equate here, because, you know, these guys are not being treated the same by police. And then that's when the whole numbers debate come out. And are you using the real numbers? Are you using fake numbers, real numbers, whatever have you? So speaking of real numbers, right, to BLM or to not BLM, right? Well, I want to be able to support organizations and grassroots who are doing stuff inside the community. I know people who are actually legitimately doing things in my hometown in Richmond, Virginia right now. And the last thing that was on their mind were Confederate statues, because the Confederate statues wasn't policy. They are trying to work on actual policy. Are they happy that the Confederate statues came down? Yeah, because for some odd reason they were bothered by it. They're around my age. I was never bothered by a statue. It's just a basic trophy. I get to go out with my son and say, you see, this is the guy that lost a war that wanted to keep slaves.
Right.
I get to tell him that, you know what I'm saying?
Tell that story, right?
I get to tell the story. It's just a story.
Yeah, this guy.
And they keep on trying to compare, and I swear up and down, man, folks keep on trying to compare our slavery with Nazi Germany, and you know, it ain't the same. It ain't the same, folks. It's just, you need to chill out with that. You know, there's some people with some funny looking hats that kind of feel some kind of way about trying to compare what they went through with slavery. And personally, as a person who is a Black American with that history, I will actually be more offended if you try to compare what folks who are in my ancestry went through compared to Nazi Germany. It's just not the same.
I feel like that's a more comparable argument with like the Native American experience.
Yes.
Right? Like they were purposely, you know, the government went and took out their food supply, you know, ways of life in order to specifically kill them off.
Yes. That's way different than needing us as cattle, because that's what we were.
Right. I mean, like I hate to say it, but they kept us. You know, it was a struggle, but it in no way. I feel like the Jewish experience is more in line with the Native American experience.
Yeah, I can see that.
There was particular genocidal subjugation of them to remove them and claim their land and take over. That's all it was. You're either going to be with us and work, and even in some cases, they worked with them and still died. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't get to hear all that because you know you can't mess with the fragility of the white mind at that age, right? Boy. You can't have them having a complex in high school about what their ancestry is, right? So
yeah, but you know it's kind of funny. You talk about white fragility. There's a lot of Black fragility that goes unsaid.
There's that too.
It's not socially acceptable to talk about Black people being fragile.
Right. but in the same breath, it's like if you're gonna compare it, if you're gonna say what Nazi Germany was for us, I feel like I need to pass that to the Native Americans who, you know, as of today are still on particular areas of land that are theirs as a finite result of history. Yeah. Like think about it. We're
not good, and they're not good places.
We're not limited like that. I mean, if you wanted to do it, you could say, oh, urban areas, Atlanta or something
But
like
we're
that.
not trapped. But we're not trapped in those
right.
places.
We can go and live and have a place where our race is not a designation of where we could particularly live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's what Native Americans are dealing with right now. Now, are they probably getting a little bit more of a financial benefit from all of that? Yes. That's now when you
It
start.
hasn't helped them culturally. It hasn't helped them collectively culturally.
It hasn't helped them from a standpoint of this abundance of wealth, but it's helped to keep their lineage going, and it's helped to keep them from basically falling off the face of the earth. Because that's what it's gotten to. I mean, they had to modernize. They had to come along with colonialism.
Yep.
And
sometimes they helped out with colonialism by having their own slaves.
Yeah.
We ain't supposed to say that though.
Right. But it's like it's a touchy thing. It's just so. But we don't really get casinos and all these avenues, because those basically what I'm getting at is those are means of reparation for that. Okay, what they went through, what their ancestors went through, what they had to deal with in dealing with colonialism in its heyday and all of that, and how they were just basically pushed aside in the whole capitalism beginning. They do tend to reap the benefits in certain tribes from that. Now, when you compare us to that, we're free. We're for the most part, we're able to be where we want to be, able to get opportunities that we want to get to, and we're not segmented from that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're also not being able to leverage what we went through, like the Indians did, or like Jewish people did. Because we still infight, and we still manage to not have as much nepotism about ourselves as those groups do, and it's what lends to all this policy about Israel, and it's what lends to all these different policies for Native Americans and being a marginalized society at a high level. That's the whole goal here is to do what they've done.
Yes.
Establish ourselves within the lobby of the U.S. government, and be able to say, this is what we demand, this is what we need, and what we want.
Yeah.
And for some reason, that has eluded the black community for just forever. I mean, I don't, and to make it even worse, we're more predominant than them on a numbers game. We've got senators, we've got judges, we've got sheriffs. We're in these different pillars of the judicial system and in government.
Yeah, nothing seems to have changed.
But nothing and it just blows my mind. It's like when you really think about the last Native American. I think her name is I think she's out of Honolulu. I think she's a representative, House of Representatives. Gabby, I can't remember her name, and I hate to stammer over it. But she's a Native American.
Okay.
And out of 180 some odd senators and House of Representatives, she's the only Native American. Like,
wow.
So actual
when we cry, and I do mean that exactly the way I said it. So when we cry, there's a lot of blacks that cry about representation. We really shouldn't be crying about representation. We got plenty of it because
we have so much of it. I mean, just look. You could look at a courtroom nowadays, a modern courtroom. Okay, you could just let's
modern courtroom that's not in backwoods Mississippi.
Right. Like take Richmond, Virginia, for example. Okay, and this is just to my own visual perspective. Okay, I'm a police officer. I'm going into criminal court or traffic court. Both sides of the courthouse are run by black judges. Okay, they've been sitting on the bench for probably 20-something years. Okay, you've got a predominantly black sheriff department. Okay, top to bottom. So the bailiffs and everything in there, they're all black. Okay, I think the only white person in the room was probably the clerk. Wow. Okay, so sitting next to the judge. You've got black lawyers, as representation, and it's just
But
when you
Ron,
look
I'm sorry.
at it.
I'm sorry, Ron. When we start saying things like that, where you see the amount of black multimillionaires we have, the amount of black judges, the amount of black law
Mhm.
enforcement, the amount of black people that we have in these different positions, there are not white people, but pro-black people, pro-blacks. I'm making sure I really emphasize pro-blacks. That says that doesn't mean anything because we are still, quote unquote, disproportionately whatever, what have you.
Oh, incarcerated.
So, incarcerated things like that.
Incarceration rate is very high.
But that means that black people, that means that black lawyers, black DAs, and black judges are the ones who are putting us in it now, and not just. And so now the excuse becomes, well, they're just making sure they placate to their white patrons so that they can go ahead and keep their positions of power. Like what? What?
Well, I mean, a little bit of that statement is true because look at the amount of people that go and vote. When you put the numbers on the table.
Yep.
Okay, we don't go out and vote enough. We simply do not. Now, some of that's got to do with not being able to criminally. Okay, there might be some areas of the justice system at play in that. But the other side of that is that people don't go. The largest number in which we felt like we were represented was with Obama, and then you saw a record surge in that because of who he was and what it meant for a large generation of our elders and a large diverse group of people, progressive people. Okay, but overwhelmingly across the board, average, we do not go vote. We don't go vote in primaries. We don't go vote unless it's the general election.
Yeah, we don't really do well. I mean, we did not. I can tell you also from being in my hometown of Richmond, when it came to that mayor, I would say the mayor most likely won because of, it wasn't because of District 7. District 7 is a predominantly black district. And it had to be between, if anyone got out of the vote, the largest district in there is what you got in Southside because of the Hispanic population that's really overtaking the city in the Southside area. So between them and then the majority of our white Richmonders in Northside and those fan districts, things like that. That's most likely who
that's who you're especially at the local levels. Like
that's how the black guy got elected.
Yeah, I mean it's like seriously, it's a problem. It's something that people I don't think people really understand the importance of primaries and local elections. This is the government you live under. This is where you're most impacted when you're going to a Richmond City courtroom or you're going to a Spotsylvania courtroom or whatever. This is these are the people that are put in place by the locality and by the people who predominantly vote and care enough to pay attention to when the sheriff all of a sudden he's on TV and he says, oh well, this shouldn't be a sanctuary city. Well, guess what? If you didn't go vote or make it a point to see that this guy was at least opposed in his running, what can you say? There's nothing you can say.
Yeah.
All you can do is hope that you don't fall into that category of people that he feels like, in his view, because he's sheriff, can now subjugate and say, yeah, we're gonna check you out with ICE and all that stuff. You can't say anything if you didn't try to bully him out of the ballot box and go vote and care enough to go, unless aside from a general election, when you could have.
But that matters though, because there was a situation where, because you and I live in the same area now, and no, you're not gonna know what it is anyway, because I ain't gonna say it. We live in the same area now, and the sheriff that got recently elected here had a deputy that said some disparaging things when it came to when it was really at the height of the riots and stuff recently. And the deputy said what he thought was right, and the sheriff, who is white, fired him and got rid of that deputy because that sheriff, while his personal political beliefs may be what they may be, maybe he's not a supporter of the Black Lives Matter organization, don't really care about the black people around here, around this area, he still knows that as the sheriff of the county, he has to take care of both the black constituents as well as white constituents. Because if he don't, then that could cause chaos in a very, very peaceful and quiet area, this is a peaceful and quiet area. You know what I'm saying? I like this area. So, but that's exactly what I found to be very interesting is what you said, paying attention to those local elections, because in Richmond, when they voted the black Democrat mayor in, who had like almost $500,000 plus given to him from the DNC to run for mayor of a city. He was Terry McCullough's boy, very friendly with Bill Clinton, and when you boys with the first black president, as some people call him, and you boys with one of his best friends, you probably gonna be a shoo-in to win wherever you win. And policy-wise, him being black and Democrat led to less funding for the schools overall, led to him trying to funnel in a Coliseum project to build Richmond Coliseum so it can be a destination venue. Fantastic, great, thank you for the idea. Bring that more money and revenue in. But the way he went about it was shady and backhanded, and working hand in hand with and the big name player here was Tom Farrell from the Big Power, and that was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that made some disparaging remarks about Tom Farrell, which honestly probably ain't really had nothing to do with him. It was probably most likely it was the mayor that was doing it. He just wanted to be able to buy it and have his financial group buy it. He was in it for the money reason. The political aspects and the policy aspects falls to the mayor, not necessarily the CEO of the Million Power. But they want to blame somebody, so why not blame a rich white man more so than the black mayor? But so and by the way, you weren't the only police officer when we talk about policies and understanding your local politics. Yeah. You weren't the only police officer at the time, formerly of Richmond, that has worked with the police chief that originally resigned. And there was other police officers I seen that knew him that were equally as ticked off that he didn't stay on because of what he was doing and the things that you were talking about that he was actually trying to promote for the betterment of the community and police relations. Then this next guy comes up, and everyone's mad at him because he shot someone in the back, supposedly, because I don't know the actual facts. He shot someone 18 years ago. Ron, that was 18 years ago. Like, yeah. I can understand if he shot someone last year and got off. It was 18 years ago. There's no video. No one knows how the situation really went down. We only know one side of the story, and people are holding things against him from something 18 years ago. But I guarantee you, the majority of people, once this next election for the mayor is over, are not going to vote for somebody who cares about the kids and education for real, or whatever have you. They're going to vote the same way they've been voting. Is this person a Democrat? Is this person a Republican? I don't want to deal with a Republican because the majority of Richmond City is blue. And I mean, maybe it's just me, but being blue or being red ain't got nothing to do with it. If your policies are trash, the policies are trash. I mean, I've seen Republicans have trash policies, and I've seen Democrats who care about people have trash policies. Like, I want to care about people, so I want to go ahead and raise your taxes to 80% because that's going to take care of people. What? Do you know the people who are going to generate the majority of that tax revenue are going to leave? But anyway, not to go too much of a tangent, but that's exactly what you were talking. That's just one of the things I wanted to point out there when it comes to understanding your local. So understanding local also means that there's another part to BLM or not to BLM. Do you want to have your local organization support an organization nationally that is 1 in 6 of the protesters that support Black Lives Matter are Black Americans? So Pew Research analysis that only 17% of the protesters have been Black, while 46% are white, 22% are Hispanic, and 8% are Asian. That's the analysis shows. So I feel some kind of way about that. I feel some kind of way about that because while I understand there are white people who care and they are supportive, if they are in the front and they're the main ones causing the damages during the protests and the riots, who's going to get blamed?
Well, right on its face.
It's the unintended consequences. It's the unintended consequences. People don't want. You don't want to. But people don't want to admit that hey, if the Black people that were in the protesting for something legitimate, allow the white Antifa members or the white secret KKK members or the white people who are liberal, who are well-meaning, but they actually still just want to cause destruction because they have no life. that transfers to you, and now
it will. Consequentially, it will.
it will.
You can't avoid that.
It shouldn't, but we know how the mind and groupthink works in this country, and we know how they're
unless it's documented, unless it's on camera or something that it was this person exactly, and they're not affiliated with us, and that disclaimer is put out there. What's going to happen.
And those videos are all up and down. Those videos all up and down Twitter, all up and down Instagram. You can see black protesters who are not twerking in front of the police officers. Gosh, those people are stupid. Yeah. You know, they are actually protesting something legitimate, and they see the white person going, the white American boy. There's always a skinny dude too, some skinny Kevin Federline looking dude.
So let me ask you this question though.
Oh, musty looking. Sorry.
What do you think would be the what do you think the opinion would be if it was something like a 100% all black march, and we were very staunch on saying no, you can't join us in this march? You know, what do you think the opinion would be then? I mean, I still think stuff would get burned down. I'm gonna be honest with you. I still think out of the sheer anger of the moment.
I think when it comes to burning down, I think stuff in Minnesota would have gotten burned down. But I'm not too sure if blacks around the whole world would have just started burning their stuff down. It tends to, because, you know, just like with Freddie Gray, you know, and Michael Brown, they burned down their own neighborhood, but everyone else was like kind of protesting en masse around. You know, so I personally think that the majority of blacks outside of the Minnesota area would not have resorted to the same level of anger. It would have been angry, but it would have also the same level of anger. Just like with the statues, the majority of the statues have been pulled down, have not been pulled down by blacks, been pulled down by whites. And, you know, I believe the national opinion would have been divided, especially from the left-leaning sources, because they would have been asking the question, how come you don't want more diversity in your movement to validate, quote unquote, validate your movement? And that should be a key phrase and a key concern for Black Americans who want to be able to have their own movements devoid of people who can hijack them. The only way you do that is by vetting your leadership and making sure that everyone who's in charge looks like you. I'm sorry. You can still have diversity of thought while all looking the same. But that's just my opinion. You know, if I want to do an organization that specifically wants to help black kids, I tend to want to lean to make sure that all the black kids constantly see black faces. Not because white people are evil and they can't help, but because the kids are already kind of used to seeing you. They're already used to seeing you in education space.
It's a familiarity.
It's a familiarity. But it also breeds this mentality, and this is an unintended mentality, unintended consequence. Again, I'm not blaming white Americans.
But I think
it's one of those things where they look like they are made to look like the savior, as so many things in media have.
I think you need to get away from the public aspect of your tactics with this.
Yeah.
Because it's just like anything. You establish a group. You have control over who comes in a private kind of setting, right? You can vet those people, but once you get out into the public space, anybody can walk up. Anybody can say that they're with you. They're gonna walk right next to you. You don't know what's going on behind you a couple blocks back. Who's throwing a brick in a window?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it might be kind of like a crazy view on this, but I think that you have to really go where you can lobby and you can still control who is coming in, who's saying what, and where. Well, maybe not saying what, but at least doing something adverse to your cause, right? Mm-hmm. That could be, oh, look over there, they're doing this, they were with them, they showed up. You know, you completely get away from that whole narrative that, oh, this could have been this person or that could have been that person. No, you'll know 100% who was there with you, why they were there with you, that they stand with you. And I'm going to lead into this MFAC thing that we were talking about. Mm-hmm. Over July 4th weekend. This group has been established. I don't know the exact date of establishment or nothing because they won't say it. But NFAC is the not effing around coalition, as it's been dubbed by the Grandmaster Jay, who is the self-proclaimed leader and founder of this group.
Okay.
They're a militia group, all black, 100%. They went to Stone Mountain, Georgia, over the weekend, and wanted to stake claim to other white nationalist groups to say, because apparently this is the birthplace of the KKK, first meeting or something to that effect. And they went there to challenge them. It was about 1,000 or so that actually came out.
Wow.
Real public enemy looking, all militiaed out, like the white boys do.
Oh, that was the picture circulating around Facebook with the gentleman had the black mask, black sunglasses, all black outfit.
Yeah.
Some dude had a 22 rifle that was
plate
jammed.
carriers on. I mean, so one guy, but I mean everybody else was pretty much armed to the nine.
And they had a green, they had a different color bands.
I don't know what the bands were for. I did see some red, black, and green. All over the place. For the diaspora and all that and Africana. So it was something that went on, and it basically was a challenge to white nationalism. And I honestly thought it was interesting. I don't really know how to take it myself, as far as like what the actual intent is, what is the goal. They don't really have like a website or anything to really look into them, and I think that's a part of the tactics with their group, considering how
you can't find them.
The Black Panthers kind of were out there as an organization and got dismantled by the FBI. Yet the KKK still kind of remains because they're quote unquote a religious organization.
We know that's one of it.
Right.
But hey, they also didn't dismantle the Nation of Islam for that very same reason.
They did not.
And the Nation of Islam could. And now, I'm not saying that.
That is a good point.
I'm not saying that to excuse that the Black Panther Party got dismembered. I'm just saying that I've noticed that. I'm noticing that if you are fairly endorsed or partner with the government, they are okay with you being around.
Mm-hmm.
So just pay attention to why I said that in regards to the Nation of Islam, because some of us who are in the know certain things, and why Malcolm X.
It's just you can't get too far. I don't want to say out there. I don't have to use that context, but you can't get too pro into your cause, and it man, this is hard. This is like it's you can have a stance, just don't have too hard of a stance.
Well, I mean, no, you can't even have a stance. You can't even have a stance. You can't even have a stance anymore. It depends on what your position is. You can't have a stance anymore. For example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear about the Harry Potter creator, Fantastic Beasts creator, J.K. Rowling, the author?
A little bit. I heard some rumblings about what she said in regards to like Black Lives Matter, or
it wasn't Black Lives Matter so much.
Do what with
it wasn't Black Lives Matter so much as it was she had some comments about trans women.
That's what it was.
Trans women, and a lot of people didn't like that because essentially this person J.K. Rowling, who is a feminist, who is one of the staunchest mouthpieces when it came to the refugees that was caused by the former administration, funny enough. But a whole refugee crisis, she was one of those extra supporters about that. Liberal and woke. The only thing that she said was that along the lines, I'm paraphrasing, was that she basically said that trans women aren't wanted. That's basically what she said. And people are very, very passionate about that subject matter because they want trans people to be treated with dignity, respect, and equality, and that is totally understandable. However, I believe that there should be a room for civil discourse where if a J.K. Rowling says that, well, hold on, you're putting this man who is now identifying as a woman in the same category as me, and I, as a feminist, have had my own issues, my own problems. The only thing, like I don't remember or recall any man being a $1 billion author. I don't recall. Correct me if I'm wrong. but she is either the first woman or the first period billion-dollar author. Like, that's pretty beast mode and a pretty heavy financial and status accomplishment for a woman in this world that she can lay claim to. And if she had to go through a set of struggles as a woman specifically to get through that, then why would I then try to tell her that she's canceled because she's experienced life as a woman all her life, and that she has some issues with a man saying that now he can feel the same way as she does when he never experienced that. I think people should be more apt to listening to that opinion from an actual feminist. Once again, I want to emphasize J.K. Rowling's a feminist.
Woman.
She's an actual woman and feminist.
She's an actual, biologically, she is an actual woman.
Well, some people don't. Some people they believe in climate change science. They don't believe in biological science.
Oh my god, it makes my head hurt.
I think we should be able to have a civil discourse about that. And when I mean civil, I mean legitimately civil, and not name calling or shaming, thinking that someone wants to be discriminatory when they're not trying to be.
They're not. You can't pull in discrimination with facts. Okay, it is what it is. It's an ideological argument at best, but you cannot. I could never sit here and say that I understand the pain of a woman, in regards to pregnancy, right? I will never in my life ever.
Or experience with we and men, we don't realize the amount of sexual things that ladies get exposed to. And I was one of those that was oblivious to the actual, not just the numbers, but the amount of experiences that women that I've dated had that I didn't know that they had going on. And, and I'm making sure that I navigate the waters through the dating waters when I was single at the time to make sure that I wasn't coming off as some guy that can trigger her to have those memories of a past experience that she had, because surprisingly, it's a lot of women who go through these encounters that are silent about it, that have shame and guilt connected to it, that try to come out about it and got silenced by their own family members. And so there's a whole set of experiences that they have to deal with that, to be quite frank, us men don't have to go through. So I do find it kind of disrespectful when a guy who is self-actualizing, compares his self-realization to the full totality experience of a woman. I think that's not fair to women.
You just can't.
You have your own experience, bro. You have your own experience, your self-realization. And you know what? I'm okay with you realizing who you are. Just be honest and be honest and real about it. And be respectful of women who go through a hell of a whole lot more than we have. Mentally, emotionally, and physically. Anybody can identify.
You can identify as a tree tomorrow. Okay, like I just don't. Your life leading up to that point, prior to identification, was not in semblance of, what you're trying to identify with. You're only on the optic level of identification. That's it. That's all. You see yourself that way, but you haven't gone through the biological intensity of what it means to be a woman on a day-to-day, month, year-to-year basis.
And when I see you, person who self-actualize themselves on the street, and you say hi, I'm going to say hi back to you, because I'm going to respect you as a human being. Your personal choice has nothing to do with whether or not I have a happy or healthy life. I just want to make sure that we have a good conversation where if a woman is saying that these group of people is making her feel this way, doesn't equate to she hates that people. She hates that group.
Yeah, that's not.
It's not the same. Disagreeing with how the terminology is used is not hate. But, these are the people that say the words of violence now. I remember when sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt you. Now it's words of violence.
Right, yeah.
Don't you understand? If words of violence, it's like, really? Words of violence? Words can incite violence, but
right.
I'm being too semantic about it. A little facetious.
Yeah.
So So all that encompassing, right? Because all that has to do, funny enough, what people may not realize is that that conversation we just had has a lot to do with the organization itself, because the organization supports the ideology that trans lives matter and trans people's lives do matter, and they should be treated with decency and respect.
Yeah, because as long as you're, for me, I'm like, do you contribute positively to society?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, are you out here helping people or not?
Yeah.
Are you moving something forward or not? You
Yeah.
know, like I could care less about what you decide to wear, how you decide to look. Do you treat me with respect just the same? And can we work together in the workplace or wherever?
Yes.
If I can do that with you, I'm good with you. Okay, and
there's some people, in my opinion, Ron, that and I include any group that considers themselves marginalized in this. There are two groups of people. I know it's an either or fallacy or whatever. I figure there's two groups of people, and all marginalized folks, no matter what culture they're from. If you're marginalized in your particular country, there's two groups, in my opinion, that you fall in. You want to be treated equally, or you want to be treated special. And there's a lot of people, no matter what marginalized community they're from, they want to be treated as special boys and girls. They want to be treated special. You know, recognize me more than I've recognized myself. Recognize me more than my parents have recognized me. Like, I deserve to be known by you personally, and you have to do everything that I want. Get on your knees and apologize for a bunch of white people, have white guilt, or whatever it is. But then there's people who want to be treated equal. It's like, okay, can I have a law? Please, just okay. Do we have policies that are in place so I can live my life?
Can we remove some policies that
yes.
hold me back? Because that, you know, I think that. Yeah, you know, I think that's where the rubber meets the road.
But we get Aunt Jemima though.
Oh man,
they took Uncle Ben, bro. They took Uncle Ruckus.
That's all well and good.
The dude who played Cleveland Brown for 20 years gave up his iconic spot and all that money so a person of color can come in and mess up and have that opportunity. I didn't mean to say mess up. Or did I?
I just mean like how we're put back on the curve economically, financially. There are still laws in place in some areas of this country that say, you know, property will not be sold to African Americans directly. You know, those types of things are what need to change. You need to remove the level of discretion in a manner that says you can't do this anymore. You know, if I come to the table with my greenbacks just as much as this brown man and this white man and this yellow man, I should have just as much opportunity to obtain that asset as they do. Okay, and like that kind of stuff. That's what we need. Pull a monument down, pull a statue down. That's all well and great, but can I get this multiplex apartment?
Yes.
When I've got the right credit and everything I need to have my ducks in a row.
Can I get that real estate loan? Can I get that real estate loan for $535,000 that I saw this white guy post on Facebook bragging that he's going to be able to utilize that because of the coronavirus relief?
Right. Like, you know, can we, if you're going to have loopholes and you're going to be a capitalist society like that, everybody should be able to feast in those loopholes. Okay, not just a certain segment of society,
and not just a rapper or an athlete either.
Right. Okay, like
it shouldn't take a rapper or an athlete to tap into those that happen to be black. It should be able to be a normal, everyday person who wants to move to that next level of an income bracket and have the opportunity uninhibited to do so. You know, if you and I wanted to go on a string of buying houses, we should be free to do that without any policies that restrict our access to monetary funds to be able to invest.
Now, let me tell you something. This is where the argument starts with those that are in the White House right now.
Yeah.
I said, well, I propped up these opportunity zones. Come to these opportunity zones. It's BS that for him to stake claim to it because these are Obama era policies that just got enacted. Let's be fair about that. So that there is something with that to be said, but at the same time, because you're not dismantling it like you're trying to do the Affordable Care Act and et cetera, and all these other policies, you feel like, oh, I'm helping the community, right? This is what I've done. Look at what I've done. I think
I ain't
that
gonna lie, I'm fine with the Affordable Care Act going away. I'm fine.
Right. Like,
I'm totally fine with that.
I think it needs to be tweaked. I think it needs to be fixed, but
It never addressed the issue. It never addressed the issue of actual healthcare.
You have to cut out the capitalism pie of it. You
No,
really do.
You don't have to capitalize. You don't have to capitalize.
No. Follow what I'm saying here.
Okay.
The reason that the healthcare system is all over the place is because it's not as regulated as it should be, and there's not enough oversight from Congress to say we are going to cap these drugs. We're like the rest of the world does, and people want to start to get on that whole socialism track. All it's doing is it's benefiting that area of the world that much better. People still go vote. They still go. They might have a two-party system. They might not, but nobody cares when they go get surgery for a broke leg that their son got skateboarded. Okay, nobody cares, and everybody knows that the entire society as a whole is putting into it. Okay, it's not. Oh, this hospital is charging you $6,000 for ankle surgery versus this hospital that charges you $35,000. And
now right there,
disparity.
What you just said right there is where I believe the government will be helpful into adding some legislation oversight. That's what I mean. We should allow John Hopkins to go ahead and do what they want to do because of the research and the things that they have available versus VCU health systems. But what should be available is, before anything happens, is the direct cost of what it is.
Right.
Is VCU health system going to charge me, like you said, $6,000 for the broken ankle? Or are they going to charge me $35,000 for the broken ankle, even though John Hopkins is offering it at $2,000? And it's the same surgery, and it's the same procedure, and the same situation.
Right.
So why is VCU charging me almost 30 times more for the same thing? And I believe that right there will then change the healthcare system itself, because now doctors and the hospitals have to now have prices that are competitive so that people can actually frequent their hospitals.
Right.
To go out of business.
But the doctors,
the government regulations,
the doctors don't have a plan. That the doctors, the nurses, the surgeons,
no, it's their board. It's a hospital board.
Right. The only people that matter in that process are the people who run the hospitals and the board. Okay, that decide to say, oh well, we have this many, because again, it is a system. Okay, they want to say, oh, I'm paying this doctor this much, I'm paying this neurosurgeon this much. Okay, they could go to this hospital and get paid this much. It's a matter of employee, CEO, company type of organizations that
and every company wants to be able to have the best possible bottom line. They want to stay in the black and have a lot of profit. So why wouldn't they then create policies?
What I mean is
opportunity to happen.
Is take out that aspect of needing to be so profitable over the other hospital, when all you're doing is providing the same service that people ultimately want and need in their locality. Think about it. If you got VCU, you got U of R, and you've got Mary Washington Hospital or the University of Virginia Hospital in Charlottesville you can go to, right? You got these are your localities that you can get to easily, okay, in the state of Virginia for any ailment, right? And the only difference is okay, the price and ease of getting there, the convenience. Okay, these things shouldn't matter when it comes to healthcare. If you live in Charlottesville, you should be able to go to UVA. You should be able to get the same ankle surgery that you would get in VCU, okay, at the same cost. And once you remove the idea that my hospital, I'm a CEO of VCU versus a CEO of UVA, if neither one of them have to worry about a bottom line and being necessarily profitable, and when they provide the same services, they get the same because none of that changes. These doctors, they have to do the same process unless there's a new medical, breakthrough. Okay.
But can you have that level of? Can you have that medical breakthrough and that kind of innovation in a system that doesn't allow anyone to go above a certain quota, or don't you allow to do more things necessary? Because I don't know. I don't know about you, but I've seen that we have made major breakthroughs in the medical field to the point, and other countries have too, that have more socialized medicine. What I'm saying is the rate in which we have breakthroughs is at a higher clip. I'm not saying that's primarily the benefits of a capitalistic society as far as the economy is concerned, but I do believe it plays a role in having that freedom to be able to innovate. Because there are some places that are so heavily regulated, you can't innovate. Like, for example, there was I keep forgetting. This was one of those big things that Trump dealt with. There was a family that had a child. I forgot how old the child was at the time, but I believe he was still between that infant and 1-year-old stage of development in Britain. And the health board there was not going to. Now, this is a government-run healthcare. Okay, there's more situations of this happening. But I'm just using that as an example. And I'm trying to recall the whole name. But Trump tried to make it a whole hashtag for his marketing, things like that. But they wanted to take their child freely to come over to America, and there was some treatments here that could have been a benefit to their son. I still forget whether or not.
I remember this.
I don't know if their son passed away or they were allowed to do it, but the majority of the situation was that government was trying to interfere with the parents' responsibility and right to preserve the life of their child. So, people may say this is a slippery slope fallacy, but this is not the first time a situation like that has happened. Once the government is in charge of whether or not your healthcare matters to them, then they're going to do the things that cost the least. So if I or you happen to have a cancer, and the cancer is one of those ones that require the most expensive types of treatment, well, then they're going to go ahead and not. Or if we're elderly and we're, let's say, we're in our late 60s, early 70s, certain things they will not treat. And, there's going to be some people that ain't going to believe it, but when you bring up the term death tribunals, people don't believe it, that is an actual thing. But in certain areas of our world where there's socialized medicine, and when I mean socialized, that's a buzzword, government-controlled medicine. Socialism is a buzzword, excuse me. When we have government-controlled medicine, the government will always do exactly what the CEOs was doing in the hospital anyway and focus on the bottom line, because the government isn't spending their own money, because the government doesn't create money. It doesn't have money. It doesn't create a good or service. So they only have to use the money that you and I
absolutely does create money, but we're not going to go there.
No. That's not the government. That's not the government. So, it's not backed by anything. It's not backed by anything. So the government doesn't create a good or a service that actually is backed by something tangible for them to give to the American people to have a will in exchange. So, like, I can't go buy, a phone from the government and pay the government for my phone, even though you have the Obama phones. But anyway, they can only take, in my opinion, the government can only take from the people that produce and then redistribute it and spend it based on how we ask them to do it. So, people like roads and all that stuff and stop signs, like, hey, make sure my streets don't have
regular fiscal responsibility.
And make sure that if a foreign power wanted to go ahead and try to start some stuff, we fight on their soil and they don't bring it over here. I would prefer, let's go over there. But so all I'm saying is that I personally do not like the idea of more government controlled things, because as a person in my profession, I've seen what happens. The more government gets involved, it sucks more.
Well, I'm not saying that you let the government run it. All I'm saying
that's what's going to happen.
No.
Because if they fucking regulate it more, they're going to want more kickback. That's how they do it.
It's only those sitting in those seats.
Ask Feinstein and Pelosi how many kickbacks they got when they try to do certain things.
Because those kickbacks don't come down to us. So
they never do.
What I'm saying is, on the ground level, there's always going to be innovation. You can't get away from innovation. Doctors are going to have processes. They're going to have their means to do surgery, and they're gonna a lot of innovation is through happenstance anyway. They're going to see, oh, this was a little bit more efficient. Dang, I probably shouldn't have cut over there, but look what happened. It was good. Maybe I should put this out to the rest of the doctors. That is going to happen regardless. What I'm talking about, the point I'm trying to make here is what is going to impact me and you when we go directly to the hospital, and we don't have to be so, in the blind and have to ask all these questions and be so, you know, disoriented on where are these costs coming from? What are these fees? How, you know, how could I go
with you on that, but see
how
that
could I
part
go
I'm
to
with.
3 different hospitals and get 3 separate bills? Some have particular fees, some don't.
Yeah.
I get third party bills that I was never even aware of.
Oh,
you know,
bro, I went to the doctor office because I had to do my sleep apnea. They gave me a charge just for coming into the building.
See.
And I think that right, and so like, but like this that's not where I disagree with you on. I believe all those things should be transparent, upfront, and as far as regulation is concerned, I believe all that should be printed in black and white and transparent for the customer.
That's
and
where
the customer decides. And when the customer starts to decide what they're going to do, and they start going to, you know, like I said, if you know, you got St. Mary's and VCU Health System, and St. Mary's is charging you a $55 daggone fee just to come to the building, and VCU doesn't, well, guess where I'm going to go as a customer? And guess what? Right. Guess what? The board who we both agree aren't really in the best interest of the customer. We both agree on that. But guess what? That board now, who's looking out for their profit and bottom line, is going to have to do. They're going to have to cut that $55 show up in the building fee, because VCU is now taking all their patients and being overran, and they have to start cutting doctors and essential staff because they can't afford them anymore. And now it's just like, you know, and even without that, hospitals are just going to be productive or not productive depending on what they want. VCU is one of the best cancer places you can go to. St. Mary's is one of the best places you can go to if you're pregnant. If you have a wife that's pregnant and you want to make sure you have some of the best care possible, St. Mary's is a beast place to go to. You know, St. Mary's is a beast place. And VCU does have people who can do maternity and can do pregnancy, but St. Mary's is better. So I believe, based on what you were saying, as far as that price separation, that price revelation, if we have that transparent pricing, then someone who knows that St. Mary's has better pregnancy status and sees their price is like, you know what? I can understand why that price is the way, because they have the better such and such, or I can see why when it comes to heart surgery or cancer surgery at VCU, why their price is so high, because they have the best equipment and such and such and so and so. I'm in total agreement with you. I'm not disagreeing with you on that end. As far as who should run it,
I want to clarify to say that I don't think big government interference is plausible here. Okay. I agree with you on that. All I'm asking for is that we get our government to operate in a manner that will start to, I guess, iron out the wrinkles. Yes. You know, from where they stand and say, look, you know, insulin it's like, you know, it's 500% over cost versus Canada.
Freaking ridiculous.
Why? Like what? Like
what?
Or
the EpiPen, which is the EpiPen somehow the gentleman had a lobby. He paid some people off to stop the making of a generic version of it, because generic version would have cut into his profit. Okay, cool. Understand? You wanted to beat down the competition. All right, cool. If I was in the government, I would have just said, no, you need to learn how to not, because his product is a required product. So he has guaranteed government-backed endorsed profit coming in, because you have to have it at summer camps. You have to have EpiPens at school. You have to have EpiPens at hospitals. So it's not fair. About. Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I think capitalism, and I hate to say this, but there should only be so much level of capitalism in healthcare. You have to cap it. You have to say, listen, this is not what people are wanting or need. That's leading to people either rationing out their medicines, which is not ideal, or trying to go other alternative routes that might not be as oversought, and checked on, So
we see the same problem. My solution would be to not necessarily cap it, but to now open the floodgates so that if someone else has the same formula for EpiPen as the EpiPen formula, then they can come into the market, and that they can come into the market and force them to drop the cost. But because that's the whole reason why the free market is supposed to be a beneficial thing. through capitalism because you're supposed to not have T-Mobile and freaking Sprint merging together to make a super daggone company against AT&T and Verizon. And you have three cell phone service providers in the whole entire country. That doesn't make any sense. Oh, Metro PCS? No, it's by T-Mobile. Oh, Straight Talk? But Straight Talk isn't its own brand. It uses the towers of Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile and T-Mobile Sprint. So, it's not independent. So I believe that opening the floodgates and taking the reins off of people who have the same formula that can work better and is cheaper to be able to come in and force them to come down the price, because now
or not even better, that it works.
It just works. So I mean, if you got what's one of those drugs that that's in that corner of the market? Humira. I think it was Humira. One of those things that they corners the market on plaque psoriasis. If I come in with a drug and I call it Humoris, it's like it functions just like Humira, only it's $2. It's the same thing, same product, $2. And it works. And then all of a sudden now people are like, no, I don't want Humira, I want Humoris. And then I'm rolling in dough, and if Humira wants to roll in dough again, they're gonna have to do what? Have to lower their prices.
Now let me ask you this though: does it really help the situation where you're at a loss? An abundance of information that you're unaware of, because I feel like if you open the floodgates too, because I honestly kind of feel like they already are open with the way prices are and the way people understand the market as it stands. I think it kind of lends it wants to help the problem, but it kind of lends to letting it propagate, because this CEO says, well, I'm going to charge $500, and the government doesn't see a problem with it. So the next CEO says, well, all right, I'm just going to charge $4.99 or $4. It's still the costs are still exorbitantly high. They're still for the average consumer across the board. Floodgates are open, but nobody's saying that that's a problem. And meanwhile, people can't get the treatment they need because they simply can't afford it. But the alternative is to go to places like Canada or go to Germany or get it sourced from somewhere else where the price is, for the same amount of $500 for insulin, that's like 2 years worth of insulin. In Canada.
There's some places where you get some places where you can just order it straight off of Amazon, they'll come international.
Right. Like what I'm wanting for is more. It's just more of the government, legislative process to be more prevalent, to say, all right, we've got to get this down to where we're actually getting it within range of people. Okay, not necessarily below market value or in the red.
No, definitely do that below market value, because market value is a fake thing that's determined by, like, for example, when gas was going down because of coronavirus, smart people, and I do mean that term loosely, were saying, well, it's because not a lot of people are on the road, so the gas prices are going down. In my opinion, the market for that gas has always been that daggone low, and the fake things that we use in our society, like inflation, those little fake things causes the prices to go up when they don't really have to. Gas, in my opinion, if it was going to go up, it would have made sense if it went up to no more than $1.50 at this point. But for the fact that it was $3 and $4 and $5 in some places,
and then supply too.
They say that, man, but they say that nonsense. But all these people who swear up and down they know about what's going on the planet and don't know a daggone thing. We have enough oil without even fracking ourselves in the United States. Without even fracking ourselves in the United States, we have enough oil to last us at the very bare minimum another 200 years, and that's without us fracking. That's without the United States fracking or drilling. That's without us doing anything. So if that's the case, then there's a chance. And once again, I'm saying this as a person who understands and wants to have alternative opportunities and fuels and things like that, because I believe there are better ways to do certain things. But I'm just saying what is. Ain't no daggone way oil should have been that daggone expensive ever.
Nah.
Like this coronavirus revealed to me that there was a lot of things that are unnecessarily high that for consumers that don't need to be that high. And I'm in agreement with you on that. I just don't think the government should be involved in the government should be more involved, but you're not a big government person either. So you want just enough to set those prices right.
Right, because it's there's no reason, like, and honestly, if our congressmen and our senators and stuff like that really care and give a shit about their constituents, and it's something as minor and as small as healthcare prices can be impacted by legislation.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even have to be that huge, right? Just look at it. Like, Bernie made a big highlight about it during his campaign. He was busing people from Vermont to Canada to get life-saving insulin, at a 18th of the cost. Just simply across the border.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that if you left that same pool of people to try to fend for themselves here and try to make ends meet for that medicine here, the same medicine, they'd likely die.
And that's one of those things that I want to find interesting, because I think what gets lost in what you just said right there is, did the cost of insulin actually go down in Canada, or do they just replace and subsidize the cost that's already being charged with taxpayer dollars? Because when they're subsidizing the cost, then they really didn't change the effective price.
It's 50-50. Okay, yes, they do both in Canada. They cap price and they subsidize. Okay, so that Exhibit A person from Vermont can go and get 6 months worth of insulin, for, I think it was like $80.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, versus trying to get that same amount here, that's going to cost them close to $600.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like, that is just outrageous. And the average person ain't, they don't have just $600 to throw away for even less amount of insulin. Because even at 600 some odd bucks, that was still only maybe like a month's worth, versus 6 months worth at $80. Okay, you can go over there, and if you're able to spend at least half of what it costs to get the 1 month, you almost got a whole year's worth of insulin, and you're good. You see what I'm saying? Like that clear, stark geographical and governmental difference is what I'm talking about. It's like that should alarm a lot of people. Now imagine that's not just insulin. Imagine that's other prescribed medicines that you may need for cancer or for a defect or something like that you got going on medically, right? In a free-for-all kind of society where the floodgates are open and the CEOs over here in charge of the medicine are saying, well, in America I can charge you $800 and I'm gonna do it because ain't nobody really saying I can't. Like, most of the CEOs don't mind bringing the cost down because it don't hurt them, but they're keeping it where they're keeping it because, well, the other CEOs are doing it and nobody's saying it's a problem for them. And then the consumer's just left in the lurch. People like me and you are just left in the lurch to figure out how we gonna pay for it. Even as we get older and our income level falls and all these other impacts of our society start to take effect, there's nobody really coming to help you out. There's no real way to say, oh yeah, you'll be able to maintain this and be kept. Even, we got Medicare and we got Social Security, but it's nowhere near what's necessary to maintain yourself from a healthcare aspect. If you have a healthcare emergency, you're basically done in America, unless you can get yourself somewhere else that you can get these medications at a fraction of the cost where most people believe it should be at, because it's healthcare. It's like, you're gonna have ailments. We're humans. We have viruses that attack us daily, all the time. God bless you if you have a good immune system, but if you don't, and you live in America, you're kind of screwed, depending on what your ailment is.
No, I'm with
that that don't matter who you voted for when it boils down to it. You know what I'm saying? It don't matter. It don't matter if it was blue, it was purple, it was red. It don't matter. You're still looking at yourself thinking, damn, how am I gonna get this insulin for my grandmother or for myself or for my kids? And just hope. You just gotta hope to God you got a decent representative for your state that will take up the issue for you and want to and see the problem for what it is and really want to have some legislative action on it. to say, yeah, this is a problem. You know,
Well,
we
see,
got the opioid
that's good.
epidemic, but
That's good.
it's like
That's good.
we have an overall healthcare epidemic.
Yes.
In which are all Americans, black, white, Asian. Unless you're rich and you've got the means, you don't have good health care. You know,
yeah, we could just ask Master Johnson. We could ask Master Johnson about that, right? Because he came up in that era where if you contracted HIV, you're HIV positive, it was virtually a death sentence for you back in that time because there was nothing available for the common person to be able to have life-saving treatment. For some odd reason, Master Johnson's still here. I wonder why.
It's his means, man.
It
comes down to his means and being able to navigate our society when it comes to that. Because there's, HIV. Can you imagine how much? I know it's not. It's just kind of how technology goes. It grows and costs come down.
Mm-hmm.
But I can only imagine how much HIV medicine was in the 1980s.
Oh gosh,
it was. I'm sure it was thousands upon thousands of dollars.
And now I'm seeing the commercial. Every day going on. I'm sitting here watching on my Fire Stick, watching some free TV, and just like almost like every other commercial, it's like, hey, we have this drug for HIV. We have this drug for HIV.
One pill,
and one pill, and it don't stop any other STDs, but it is
preventative. It is preventative because it's not a cure.
Yeah.
But if you were to think about it in the scope of Magic Johnson, basically he was able to obtain the medicine through his financial means, even at the highest cost that they were.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it helped to save his life. Right? And for whatever reason, we just can't seem to be able to level that playing field of medications in our country because, lack of a better term, I feel like it's just capitalism going to capitalism.
Yeah, I believe so. I still personally think that the free market is the way to go, because without that, I believe it's just me. Without that there as a principle, then that's when you get state-ran entities that can't be vetted because state-ran entities that can't be vetted because they're the ones in charge as far as government's concerned. Like I said, I know you're not a big government. I'm just seeing how the rabbit hole goes. Once you get to that point where the government controls everything, that's when you get a China Hong Kong situation. Where you're in this country and you're within another country and there's two different things clashing heads, and Hong Kong is flourishing and the rest of China is like doing all right. The rest of China's like doing all right. You know what I'm saying? But I'm in total agreement with you on the majority of what you said, and also about the one thing you brought up, which was it doesn't matter who's in charge. There should be some semblance of a level playing field, and there should be some semblance of a level playing field where where if someone who is not ambitious decides to go ahead and give it a legitimate shot, not I'm just going to dabble and see. No, they give it a real shot and a real college try. They can be successful. I firmly believe that mostly in a free market society, can the person with little to no ambition says, okay, I'm going to put everything I got into this and can actually turn it into something. I don't find those stories really outside of societies where if you're not born into the right hierarchy of that society, you can't get that high up unless you marry up. But it should be a level playing field. And with that being said, as we were talking about to be LM or to not be LM, talk about the level playing field, we are starting to see updates in certain cases and updates and other things are coming out. You told me about this gentleman, Elijah. It wasn't Elijah.
Elijah McClain.
Elijah McClain, because at first you told me Elijah Cummings. I was like, did he die?
That was just like an auto type that.
So you told me about Elijah McClain. You've been giving me some updates about Breonna Taylor, and there was some other people that's been, being found dead or whatever, what have you. So go ahead and give us those updates.
So Elijah McClain, Aurora, Colorado, he had an interaction with the police department there coming home from a convenience store. He had a mask on. It was at night. He was called on by an individual. He was in his neighborhood listening to music as he was walking home, and the police, approached him, said he was suspicious looking. They got a call about him. Long story short, there was a bit of a struggle to, I guess, detain him, because he wasn't even really being arrested for anything. He was just being detained. And he's trying to let the officers know that he's not even far from home. He lives there. He's got his ID. He's not that kind of person. And now he was a very much an introvert type of person. He was a musician. He played the violin enthusiastically. He had aspirations to go to college, and actually complete college. I think he was doing college. He's 23 years old, and it just spiraled into this thing where he ultimately succumbed to injuries as a result of the interaction. He was also drugged at the time. I believe it was with ketamine by EMS. So it's a little murky right now.
What?
Yes. So
he was drugged?
There was an autopsy that was done. He had bruises about his body, and he ultimately went into a coma at the hospital and ultimately died. And the case is being looked at by the FBI now. This happened back in November 2019, and it's just coming to light.
We're just finding out about that.
Yes, locally there was news about it, but it's gotten national attention because of the body cam and his last words as he was interacting with police, and how they seemingly just didn't care about what he was saying. It's hard to see from the camera angles because the body cams fall off, so a lot of it is auditory after they start to struggle. You can hear exactly what Elijah's saying. You can hear what the officers are saying, but you can't see. It's mostly blades of grass that you're looking at from around there. But it's being reinvestigated. The main officer that was involved with that, responded to the call first. He has been fired, and the new police chief is looking into what transpired with him specifically in an internal investigation aside from the FBI investigation.
Well, I mean, the only thing that happened is the guy got fired. Are they hoping for?
As of right now, and I believe they've since gotten bond and everything.
Of course.
So, but they have at least been indicted.
I can't wait. I can't wait to qualified immunity goes away.
Yeah,
and I'm saying that with you being a former police officer, I am excited because I want qualified immunity to go away, and I want every police department to have body cams, because I know for a fact, not a speculation, and I'm not a shill for the cops, and you're not a shill for cops, but I know for a fact that there are people who hate cops so much because of whatever experience they have that they will also make up stuff against cops too. So I believe body cams that function in a way that cut on
that
automatically.
Don't fall off.
They don't fall off. They cut on automatically when the cops on the road. They have a live feed that goes to a server. I know this is a bunch of expensive stuff, but hey, it is what it is. It goes to a server, and it goes to the cloud, and it stays there, and it can't be easily deleted or redacted like some other videos that we have seen.
Very, very third party, high oversight. That's what you need, and you have to remove.
And it protects police officers. It protects police officers.
It does
from themselves, and it protects police officers from people.
If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you will be fine. Yep. I firmly believe that. I mean, even me, I've had people complain on me, and the first thing my sergeant did was go and look at the body cam video, and I would let them see it for themselves, and I never had an issue. My lieutenant would call the person, speak to them, understand what their issues were. They didn't discredit their issue, but they also did have my back with what was presented to them, because they weren't there either. The lieutenant wasn't there, the sergeant wasn't there, so they're looking at the video just the same, objectively, and saying, hey, it does not appear that my officer did this, and guess what? The complaints ultimately will not go anywhere after that, because there's no basis. You're basically making a complaint to make a complaint, which is your right to do. You have that option to do. Okay. I never took it personally, but I just was like, look, my body cam will say and say more than I could ever say. And I might actually leave some things out because I can't really recall it like, minute for minute, second for second, So you was happy that you had that body cam because it protected you. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I only had one. It's just, people get upset. They don't want to have to necessarily deal with police. They've got their own perspective of police and the justice system and all that stuff. So there's just an inherent animosity there from gate with some people. And
Okay.
it just, until you have video evidence, photographic evidence that can speak for you otherwise, and and you're confident in your abilities that you did exactly what you were supposed to do in that capacity, you will be fine.
Mm-hmm.
You can stave off attacks of your profession and your of your livelihood and what you do every day. You will be just fine. So yeah, but I agree. I do think you need to ratchet up the level of oversight. I'm gonna move into the other cases too with Breonna Taylor.
Okay.
Her case out in Louisville, Kentucky. There is legislation that's being pushed out again, aside from Breonna's law, that's going to dig deeper into accountability for police officers in their process of warrants, because you still have to have warrants, but there just won't be no knocks. But there have to be, it has to be factually accurate. It really does, even when you're doing things officially and in the right process, because this could still ultimately happen to someone else. You can still have a case of mistaken identity if you're not investigating and doing thorough research of who you're obtaining a warrant for. Okay, even just on the basis of name and address, that stuff should be 100% accurate every single time. If it is not, you will be held to account, and that's what the state legislature is looking for as far as policing is concerned in that regard.
Awesome.
To protect people. So now the officers still haven't been indicted. The AG there, he stands where he does. Optically, you can take it how you want. He got engaged. It is a white female that he's engaged to. He's very much a conservative Republican. It is what it is.
Hey! Now we can't use that one. We can't use that one because
God.
Miss Fox over in Miss Fox over in Chicago made sure Juicy Smollett, and she's a black Democrat. So
I mean,
it's who you know. It's who you know. I get it.
You can read into that however you want to, but there's he's definitely made it apparent that he's on to other issues at this point.
So from a legal perspective, well, much because I don't know. That's why I'm asking someone who has at least been around some of the legal things. Can't someone bring charges against him that's not the DA, or that's not how it works in that particular
case? You can be civilly, sued, which I'm sure the family will probably do.
Can he be sued? He can?
The officers, yes.
Okay, I thought the qualified immunity kind of kept him from being sued.
No.
Okay.
Now, the manner in which they're going to go about it, as far as like wrongful death and things like that, I have yet to come out. Their attorney, I believe they're being represented by Crump, hasn't really said much about the civil side of things. He's more on the criminal side, and as of right now, it's difficult without a DA that wants to bring charges. So they're going to have to have other means and other routes. And I will say this. As far as the course of their duty and, a murder one charge or capital murder, that's probably never going to happen. Okay. Just because of the length and time in which this whole warrant process took place, there were weeks, days, that went by, obtaining a no-knock, getting the information, as far as like trying to say that it was premeditated to kill her or him.
Oh no, that you wouldn't be able to prove that.
And you
wouldn't be able to prove that. No,
but as far as manslaughter, right? You might be able to hit some pillars on that, but the way the DA is looking at this is that it's a clerical error, and that had that not happened, the murder may not have happened, the shooting may not have happened, all of these other elements may not have happened.
Fantastic. That's fantastic reasoning. But it did happen.
Right. I'm just giving both sides here. I'm just giving both sides on the update here, so people have a full context of like why. But yet the state legislature can bring Breonna's law about and approve it so quickly. So But that's why, and it's a shame because the girl had a good profession she was in. She was living a good life. I feel real sorry for her boyfriend. I can't imagine what he's going through. The next case is Rashard Brooks. This case, the one in Atlanta where he was at the Wendy's, the officer ultimately shot him in the back a couple times, and he passed away as a result. That case, those folks down in Atlanta have indicted those officers. The officers have made bond in that case, and that trial is going to be set for next year, about March time frame. The big one is George Floyd. All the officers aside from Shaven have made bond. Okay, so.
Oh yeah, I saw the video of the Latino dude.
Yes.
He's walking around the grocery store. He's just chilling.
Yeah, just chilling.
just chilling. Like he's not afraid of it. He's not afraid for his life at all. I find that interesting.
This is our justice system at its best right now. People don't like it. I mean, ultimately, the man who is more.
The man who did it is still locked
up. Still in jail. But it's not a consolation to see the other three officers out on bond anyway for anybody. But this is where we're standing at, and now the defense is at the door of feeling like they're not going to get a fair trial because of all the national notoriety for Shaven and the Minneapolis Police Department disbanding or needing to get disbanded and all of that. So
they're crowned the blues. They may not have an advantage to defend their clients.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
please,
yeah.
please.
Yeah. So that's where it is now.
We thought the same about George Zimmerman too.
Yeah.
We thought it was open and shut.
Yeah.
Turned out it wasn't.
So that's where we're at with George Floyd's case. His brother, I don't know if you noticed or been privy to his movements, but he's been on Capitol Hill. He's testified about police reform, and I know we only have so much time because I think we're probably gonna touch about 2 hours on this one. But
I
know we want to touch on police reform and what, in my professional opinion, what that means and what it really will need to look like in order for it to be something of notice to the general public. Okay, a lot of people don't have faith in what police reform has come to be now with body cams and internal affairs and separate civilian panels. There's still not a lot of faith there, and I think that's attributed to the fact that we've got police officers that are protected by unions. Okay, that can go anywhere else and seemingly get a job after they've effectively had a shooting or had misconduct that's on record, numerous times, et cetera, et cetera. So it still doesn't lend to faith that this guy's done. I mean, even case in point in Richmond. I hate to highlight it like this, but it is what it is. Where you've got someone who seemingly rose in the ranks after their time and having their time on the street, had a shooting. Now the family is learning that we thought he had left the department, when in fact he didn't, and turns out he became the commanding officer for the Internal Affairs Department, no less.
Oh gosh, no.
But and I'm not saying anything that isn't factual here. It is what it is, and it's not good optics when you're talking about what people expect after injustice in their opinion. Okay, or at least from what they're being told. Now, granted, this was a decade and some more ago, but the result of this and the outcome of this, seeing someone ultimately propped up on television for potential, command of an entire police department, after his dealings on the street by one particular family, is a little disconcerting to people. And once they start to learn about, oh man, okay, wow, so he got to do all this after, wow, okay, it just leaves a bad taste in people's mouth.
Yeah, still being protected even after you do something that should cost you your job.
And that's why I highlighted it the way I did, because I'm not going to name any names. You can just, if you're aware of the goings on today, you'll know who it is. But yeah, and that's something that's played out many times across the country that doesn't get notoriety, that doesn't get any national exposure. And for people that have to deal with, the families that have to deal with that on a day-to-day basis, they lost a loved one in interaction with police. Now they still have to wonder, am I going to go a county over and still have to deal with this guy or girl?
Mm-hmm.
And this in some cases is in places that don't even have unions. Just because there's this idea that, oh, you're an officer, you're still a good guy. You might have 20 different complaints for discrimination and excessive force and all that, but you're still a good guy. We've got to get away from that idea of thinking. Once people start to exhibit this behavior on an actual trending basis, they're getting complaints every 3 months or so. Some of them get thrown under the rug. They've got decent supervision in their opinion, looking out for them. Nothing really comes to light. These are the bad apples in the orchard, okay, that are enabled by the higher ups. For me, ideal police reform has people getting into the profession and being community liaisons for at least a year and a half. And
while they're training?
Not even while they're training. Even more so while they're training, but after they become an official certified police officer, you are not going to answer a call in which the circumstances may dictate that you have to pull the trigger on your gun. If I was police chief, or if I was to be lobbying to Congress, and to the government, I would say I want a 4-year degree. I want a 4-year degree of criminal justice, or at least an associate's of criminal justice and constitutional law. Okay, I want them in training for what's necessary to understand police tactics. Okay, some police departments do it as long as 8 to 9 months. Okay, like an actual academy. But after that, I want them engaging the community in a positive manner at all times, at least up to a year and a half.
So, like whatever community thing that the police department has, if you have a person who's a community liaison of the department itself, every new police officer is going to be in that particular branch of the department for, of course, pending a absolute crazy emergency for that year and a half. So that way the community knows who their faces and knows who they are.
I want the positive aspect to dominate the narrative like it does with a firefighter.
Yeah.
Okay. People don't look at firefighters and say, "Oh God, a firefighter is going to be here." I might, fear for their lives at the sight of a firefighter.
No song was ever made called After Firefighter.
Right. Now, do they have to go and get education and all these degrees and stuff like that? No. Okay, they don't, because they're not their capacity. They're unarmed for one, and they're only there to assist. Genuinely, in the scope of they're only there to assist. So I wouldn't demand the same amount of educational background as I would, and even from my own perspective. Okay, I don't have a degree. I was able to get into the job. I had 8 months of police academy, instruction. I got about 2 weeks worth of constitutional law to understand, how laws affect my job and how I exercise them in the course of my job. But that was it. Okay. The rest of it was on me. I had to learn more case law. I had to understand different scenarios that involved the police more on my own. Right. But I would want that mandate to be effective for new incoming officers. There is a country in Europe that does this model of policing, and they have yet to see a death by police, at least nonviolent criminal interaction, at the hands of police in 10 years.
Okay, so when let me make sure that I understand what you just said. When they came to a unarmed or a nonviolent perpetrator, no deaths.
No deaths.
Okay, so we ain't talking about dudes who had guns pointed at the police officers. We're talking about people who were most likely unarmed or not violent or whatever have. Okay,
right, but just breaking the law. They might
just breaking the law, but they ain't doing
stop sign.
Yeah,
nothing that hurt anybody else.
And we have way too many of that here.
but their direct response to people that are violent, that are robbing a bank, that shoot someone, that have the potential to murder someone in the course of their criminal activity, they have a particular response to that is armed, okay, like similar to what we do with SWAT, okay, but the society as a whole understands if those dudes get called in, you might
that's
die.
right. Yeah.
Okay, there's a potential for loss of life on the part of the criminal. Okay, and it's understood though that this is a heightened situation, that people have in fact died at the hands of this person, he or she. Okay, there's no gray area about whether they have a gun in their hand or not, or a knife, or So the responses are separated. The initial responders, the police officers on the ground day to day, they're I don't believe they're armed in this country, and I want to say it's Sweden. They have different means of apprehending someone. They have handcuffs, they have pepper spray, they have batons.
They probably got good hand-to-hand combat skills.
Right. They have tasers. Okay. They have things that are less lethal, but they're also not responding to something like an armed party without a weapon. Okay.
Yes.
The armed parties are met with the response of the armed tactical police.
So they equip their police officers they equip their police officers for the types of responses they're going to have. So like if we brought that over here, if there was a gang related shooting, and they knew it was a gang related shooting, we're not sending our basic RPD. We're sending the heavy hitters.
Yes.
Just because most likely these people are going to be armed, they're going to be dangerous. So we're not sending just a layman cop out there. We're sending a tactical team, and they specifically respond to incidents where there's a shooter or there is a weapon and violence is involved.
Right. And it's confirmed.
And it's confirmed that most likely once we get there, this person's done.
Right. Because it's about what the scenario is, the circumstance is, and the scenario that you're presented with for violence and for harm. Okay. Not only does the model put the officer first and their safety first, it puts the society's safety right after it. Okay. The police officers aren't coming in overwhelmingly armed to something that just doesn't need it. Okay, they're not showing up to a domestic where it's just a couple fighting, or a landlord-tenant dispute with guns. Okay, they're coming. They have what they need to apprehend someone, but they're going to be alive during that interaction, unless that officer goes way overboard and just punches them to death or something like that, or bludgeons them or something like that.
And the only other thing, and the only other part of that will be if the situation that was originally nonviolent is escalated by the people who we're going to call it. They escalated something where that cop could potentially lose their life if that person escalates it, and they don't have the equipment to defend themselves to meet that same level of aggression.
So society,
but that's still better. But that's still better though, because like I'm saying, it's a societal standard. It's a societal.
They know that their interaction with them shouldn't become deadly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's understood by society, because 90% of society is calling the police because they need them.
Yeah.
Okay, so once you start to just redesign the police response, I think you will have purposeful police reform that people want. They want to be able to call the police just like they call a firefighter and have something handled. Okay, they're not necessarily calling to have someone get killed. Okay, and that like we say, we hate to be the person that called on Elijah McClain. Right? They just wanted to make sure this dude wasn't
being weird.
Right. They didn't call for him to get bludgeoned and beat up and killed. Okay. Now that's where you start to tangent off to what the officer's response should have been in their tactics.
Yeah.
Okay. But that person who made that 911 call is not calling for that. They just want to make sure this person gets checked out. If they're good, they get an ID check, they're on their way. That's it. That's what it should be. And you could tweak some things there after that, and we're kind of getting close to having to wrap it up. But I'm glad we took some time to talk about it because
No, man, what you just suggested was a fantastic
it's
idea. I think it could work because you have to change society's perspective on what to expect. And if we are expecting that a traffic stop, there are some black people. I'm not one of them because I don't live my life this way. But there are some black people who've gotten to the point where they are afraid of getting stopped by the police just for speeding because they believe that the interaction of speeding can turn deadly. You know, it comes to a time where you hope that you get stopped by a state trooper and not get stopped by a local law enforcement person.
I will say this too. I think that your interactions with the public, from that perspective of minor infractions, needs to be reduced. I feel like when you're presented with a scenario that could turn deadly, if you reduce the amount in which you have those interactions, just as a police officer, you're less likely to be susceptible to that idea of thinking like, oh, I could walk into this car and get shot.
Yeah,
right?
So maybe not pull over the car for a broken taillight, for one broken taillight. It's not really bothering. It's not really messing up. Broken taillights though.
And if you run them, they've got their license suspended. I mean, I took that mantra of like 3 strikes, right? Mm-hmm. Like, is it necessary to pull them over? No. Is it necessary to have to deal with them? No. But if there's a societal impact here that could result in loss of life or somebody being reckless, then I have to kind of deal with that, right? Yeah. I'm not saying skirt your job as a cop. I'm just saying deal with it in a manner that reduces your impact with society, okay, and lends more likely to you, one, going home back to your family, and this person also going back to their family.
It sounds like you're just saying use discernment.
Huh?
It sounds like that you're just saying use good discernment. Use good judgment.
I mean, that has to take place regardless. You have to, but it also has to be presented to society that way and understood that way. Okay, if you're going down the street and you got a tail light out, and I don't necessarily have to deal with you, I think that the job as a whole should not look down upon that, right? I had a lieutenant that would tell me, hey, I need you answering 911 calls. That's your job. I don't need 30 traffic stops that result in maybe two citations.
Nice.
I need you answering the 911 calls for fights and things that you're most needed for, that people are calling for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then I need you to use good judgment in doing so. Okay, like that's it. That's what takes you home safely. That's what takes the public home safely. Okay, because you're an armed law enforcement officer. Okay, and it's a heavy thing, but it's the reform has to start with some societal changes and understanding of why you're there, okay, and what could potentially happen, okay, and to know that, okay, I can call you and I'm not gonna end up getting punched in the face or a bullet to the back, and I called you for something, you know what I mean, right? Yeah. So it should be this thing where you've got these, another level of policing almost that is introduced that everybody knows, oh, it's going down. And we kind of have that idea with SWAT, but people almost look at a regular first responding officer as potential SWAT too.
Mm-hmm. And they should.
And they shouldn't. And there should be a clear distinction of this officer is here to mainly help you. Okay, they don't want to have an issue with you. You call for them. They want to have a good interaction with you. That should be the predominating thing. And I think you get there when you put officers in a position to, one, be educated long term, and to interact with the community long term before they even have to get to the point where they have to make a decision about certain circumstances. And people ultimately know them. Okay, if they're ingrained in the community that they service, more often positively than negatively, you're going to have a better result.
Mm-hmm.
For the public in general. People are going to be more confident that, I know Slade. Yeah, we go and play basketball at the YMCA, and he's at the community events, and my kids, they know him, and you have a particular rapport that isn't easily dismantled. People are going to be more susceptible to want to say, oh, I know him from basketball, than versus, oh, this is just a dude with a gun. and who knows
But
what
you
he's
know
going
what,
to
though,
do.
what you just said about that, I think that what you just said right there was very powerful, because now instead of a blue wall of silence protecting cops that are bad, now you have a community wall of silence that's protecting the reputation of a cop they know for a fact
Right,
is a good person, because they put in the
right,
work on the front end to make sure that
yes.
that
You're,
community at
you're,
large was like, so if
you're
something
going to
was to
have to
hop off with
force
that
it.
cop, yeah, so if something
You're
was
gonna,
going to hop off with that cop, this would be more people in the
yeah,
community be like, no, that doesn't sound like, Officer
yep,
Martin. That doesn't sound like Officer
exactly.
Martin. That sounds
Yeah,
like that you trying to blame Officer Martin for something that you did. And we
yeah.
know both of y'all,
You'll
and we
be
know Officer Martin ain't
surprised.
going to do that.
You'll be surprised at how more of the public will come to the police's defense
Yes.
in that regard, in that sense of thinking. I'm gonna wrap it up here because I'm gonna have to get ready to go. But the idea is that you're gonna have to force it, and we're already seeing the amount of police officers who don't opt for that. They're wanting early retirement. They're wanting, and that's fine. That's fine, because we really don't. You have to be able to get that kind of bad, or I wouldn't say bad thinking, but that old ideal out of the way. Now, whether you want to call that old ideal racist or other undertones with that, ultimately, if it's because this guy feels like he doesn't want to do community service for a year, basically, okay, before having to go out and do some actual police work, if you want to put it that way, and he'd rather opt out and say no, your weed out process is starting and doing more for your profession than anything else, right from first thought. Okay, when they know, I gotta have my degree, and I gotta work with the community for a year and a half before I might even be able to answer a 911 call or see some action, quote unquote.
That's good. It does.
And
It weeds it out really well.
then you add another layer of more precise training when you get into the selective groups when it comes to responding to violent crimes. Okay, mass murder and stuff like that. Bank robbery, stuff like that. Okay, these guys got to go to SWAT school or something and be able to have cardio, and there are things that people just don't want to do, and you're gonna naturally weed out the bad apples.
Yes,
you will, and there won't be this you can't do this, you can't do that kind of disparity or anything like that. It'll simply come down to the person and what they want to engage in or not. Do you want to put in the work to be an effective police officer that people aren't scared of? Or do you want to just kind of willy-nilly it and to use your best judgment, even though you might not have it, and whether you should shoot or don't shoot? I think once you get them along that long track like that, if you make a bad decision after about 2 years of interacting with the community in the manner that you're supposed to, you definitely shouldn't be a police officer anymore, and you should definitely be held to a higher account.
Yes,
but that's a whole nother episode.
I think honestly, the way that this has been going, I honestly believe that the sentiments of a police officer we should be talking about that in episode 4. There's really some different aspects, because we see there's some things going on with police officers in certain areas that they don't feel like they're being treated with respect. So they are deciding to go about their business. But like I said, I think that'd be a really good topic for episode 4. We are definitely, we have went beyond time, but I think it was one of those things that was necessary. But I may split it up into 2 parts in case it's too long in the 2 for y'all to ingest in one sitting. But we do thank you for listening. We do thank you for your support of the podcast. Remember, I'm coming from the standpoint, and Ron comes from the standpoint where we want real discourse. As you can see, even though Ron and I disagree, ain't no one shaming or calling names or trying to say you a libtard or you a MAGA KKK. None of that stuff is going down, because in order for us to learn, we have to listen. And that's the whole key to this thing. So we do thank y'all for listening to the In the Middle podcast, episode 3. I'm excited. This is the 3rd one.
Awesome.
This is good stuff, man.
Be sure to hit us up on social media, In the Middle, at In the Middle on Instagram, at In the Middle Podcast PC1 on Twitter, and hit us up on Facebook as well. Give us your feedback.
All right, and with that, episode 3 is a wrap, and we will see y'all next time. Peace.